Okay.
Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. We're so thrilled to have you join us. I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I am a past life energy healer. And I help people release chronic pain, as well as anxiety, depression, and stuck energy. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com. And I would love to introduce my wonderful co host, Gregg Kirk, who's going to tell you more about his services. And then this is going to be a really special podcast because he's going to share the major journey that he had with Lyme disease. And I think it's a big part of what made him the incredible man that he is today. And that is why I suggested the topic. So
Thank you very much for that very nice introduction, Wendy. My name is Gregg Kirk. My main website is greggkirk.com, which is spelled GREGGKIRK.com. That's where you can go find out about a lot of the things that I'm doing, um, and as well as events and so forth. Some of the main things I do is I'm a Lyme disease advocate, and I help patients with Lyme disease, and I'm certified and trained in a couple of different protocols that help patients of chronic Lyme disease, what's the difference between that and regular Lyme, or early onset or acute Lyme. We'll go into all that. I also do energy healing, remote sessions, in-person sessions. I have an office in Connecticut. I also do them remote sessions through phone or Zoom, or WhatsApp. I have patients all over the world. Who just did one with a patient in India today through WhatsApp. So it doesn't matter where you are, we can connect and we can help you resolve any blockages, any issues that are impeding your life or impeding your healing. Also do online group healing circles. We do those every Sunday at 2 p.m. East Coast time. Go to the events page on greggkirk.com to catch up and join those if you'd like to. I also run a website called and a business called Lyme Recovery Clinic. So lymerecoveryclinic.com is where you can go to find out more information about Lyme disease and the treatments that I offer there, the physical treatments, as well as some of the energetic treatments as well. So yes, I'll get the slide deck going, Wendy, in just a second.
So while Gregg does that, I will just explain. So we do these podcasts as a visual podcast. So certainly you're welcome to listen via the podcast apps or via YouTube or however you like to listen. And you're certainly welcome to be able to look at the screen. Obviously, if you're not driving, to be able to get the PowerPoint presentation. So however you prefer to consume your media for podcasts. And wakingupspiritually.com is our website, and everything is archived there. And it's great that it has a search button. So you can just put in, like I just literally before we started podcasting today, I had a gal asking me for more information on how to ground and clear her energy because she just didn't know what to do. She wasn't familiar with any techniques. So I popped that into the search button and was able to send her a podcast. If you don't see a topic that is really needed and something that's just coming up for you and you can't find good information on it, please just drop us an email and let us know that you're not finding a podcast on that topic, and perhaps we can create one for you. Because if you've got the question or you've got the need, very likely other people do too.
Yes, very good. Okay, so today we're talking about, I'm just calling it my Lyme story. It's the story about how I led a normal life and then Lyme disease came into my life, and then I'll talk briefly about the struggle to getting into remission and so forth. And that turned into a spiritual journey that was very unexpected, and how this became a pivotal point in my life to making it a better situation. As a lot of on who are regular watchers and viewers and listeners of our podcast, I've written a book called The Gratitude Curve, which was a byproduct of me going through the experience. And the reason it's called the gratitude curve is I eventually became grateful for all these struggles I experienced, not for the pain of the struggles. No, I don't think anybody's really grateful for that other than it's what I call the gift of experience. So it is the rough experiences that you have become a gift to you later, because you're not in those struggling painful moments anymore, and you can describe them to other people. You can help them navigate through them, or around them, or whatever. So that's basically why I'm here today, discussing the ins and outs, the painful times, the good times, the revelations, and the lessons I learned from all of this. So without further ado, I want to start off. Wendy and I have created these podcasts, Myth Breakers. I want to break some myths today about Lyme disease. Most of you have probably heard about it. Most of you probably think that ticks are the only way to get Lyme disease, which is actually not true. For instance, I never found a tick on me. And that's why when I moved to Connecticut years ago, where Lyme disease is prevalent, my doctors and I, that was the last thing we thought of. I actually more than likely got my infection from a spider bite, which got very infected afterwards. If you ever have a bite of any kind that turns into a bullseye rash, which is rings around the bite area, or if you have, or if it gets very red and swollen, mine, got almost the size of a cherry, and it was huge, and that is a sign of infection right there. And if it's from an insect or arachnid, they have the ability to suck your blood. It goes into their digestive tract, and that's where all the infections are. And they can regurgitate back into your system, and that's what causes the infection. So it doesn't have to be a tick. Don't let that stop you. I've seen and heard of people getting bullseye rashes from mosquito bites. It's fairly rare, but it does happen. And they can come from all kinds of horseflies can also transmit it. So there's also a misconception, I think, even on some major government websites like the CDC, that hopefully they've corrected this, but they're saying that a tick needs to be attached to you for 36 hours before it has the ability to transmit the disease. And that's not true. It can be minutes.
That's quite horribly specific.
Right. Yeah. I guess, after 35 hours, no problem. But the infection stops. It knows when to stop.
Oh my goodness.
We joke about it in the Lyme community. Like there's, for instance, there's ticks down in the seagrass in Florida, but most state officials will say we don't have Lyme disease here. So I guess, the ticks understand, to stop at the border of Georgia. Right. And they don't bother infecting people down there, but it's not true. So a bullseye rash, this is the other problem. A bullseye rash is not always present. While a bullseye rash 100% is proof that you have an infection, more than likely Lyme disease. Well, not more than likely. That's pretty much the only thing that causes a bullseye rash. You don't always get it. A tick or any other bite, it's only 20 to 30% of the time that an adult gets the bullseye rash. Erythromigrans is what it's called. That's the Latin name. Children tend to get it more often than adults, but it's not always the indicator. When you do have it, though, it is the indicator that you've got an infection, and then you've got a 60-day window to get on, and we'll go down into to that later, where we're talking about what the truths are. You need to get doxycycline or some other antibiotic. Doxycycline is usually the best. 4 to 6 weeks of doxycycline. So we'll go into that in a minute. But if any of these things happen to you, the bullseye rash, or swelling around a bite area, like large swelling, noticeable, painful, feverish feeling, if it feels warm, that's all signs of infection. Go immediately and get antibiotics 4 to 6 weeks. And then the final thing is, so I'm telling you, go get antibiotics if you've got a tick bite. But if it's been years, if you've had Lyme disease for years, long-term antibiotic treatment is not a curative for Lyme disease. So how confusing is that? And that was where my journey started, and we'll go into that in a minute. Let me tell you some truths about Lyme disease. There are 2 stages. This is the confusing thing. There's the early onset or acute form of Lyme disease, right after you've been bitten, within the first 60 days. You can have flu-like symptoms, maybe a little joint pain, fatigue, a number of things like that. Of course, swelling around the area where you've been bitten. This is your window, 60 days take doxycycline for 4 to 6 weeks. Now, here's another problem. Some doctors are kind of cavalier about this. I've heard of doctors, for instance, in Florida, you come in, you have a bullseye rash, you bring a tick, show them this is it. I've got Lyme disease. The tests are also very inaccurate, up to 60% inaccurate. The blood tests done by LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics tend to be the labs that are very inaccurate. The labs that are
the largest labs.
right, and the labs that are more accurate, more sensitive are IGeneX and Vibrant Labs, but they cost us upwards of $1,000. So it's really you're starting to see now how difficult it is to be a Lyme patient. Just in the initial me kind of laying the groundwork for what's going on. But the deal is, if you get 4 to 6 weeks of doxycycline, it stops the infection from becoming chronic. And once it becomes chronic, it turns into a whole other thing. So if that's your window of not having bad health for a very long period of time.
So it's really important to push through, even for people who may not have a physician or who may not be getting in easily. I mean, I see access to care issues with this, Greg. I mean, there's just multiple, knowing that you have to take that long a course of treatment during that short a period of time.
So it's common for a patient to come in knowing all these things that I just said, and for a doctor to say, well, here's a week's worth, or here's one pill. I've heard those things. And that's just not nearly enough. So you can come to me, go to Lyme Recovery Clinic, or go to greggkirk.com. I have some herbal treatments created by Dr. Cowden. Dr. Lee Cowden created something called the Cowden protocol. 2 elements in his protocol, banderol and cemento, which are firm. Cemento is a form of cat's claw that's extremely active against the Lyme infection, and banderol is a form of otoba root, which is a root they harvest down in Peru. Both of these things together wipe out all the infections in the first 60 days as well, just as well as the doxycycline. But you need to
really important for people to know, if they can't get into their doctor, don't
yes.
have a doctor, or they're just not getting what they feel is appropriate treatment, because I don't think this is something you could go to an urgent care or ER with, is it?
No. They would not know what to do, really. Most of them,
right?
Yeah, in the ER, they don't know how to.
You'd be triaged out.
Yeah. Anyway, so contact me if this ever happens to you. There's also a situation where sometimes patients do go on maybe a month of doxycycline and they still have lingering symptoms afterwards. And then it's good to do a round of this. I've got something on my website in Lyme Recovery Clinic. It's called the Lyme Disease Kit. Look for that. If this is reaching you and you've taken 4 weeks of doxycycline and you're still not where you want to be, go to Lyme Recovery Clinic, click on the Lyme Disease Kit, and do that for a month, and you'll probably be okay afterwards. I've helped a lot of patients with that. So that's one thing. Chronic Lyme disease. Now, if you're unlucky, like I was, I didn't know that this spider bite could have transmitted Lyme disease. So I went for years with the infection roaming around in my body, and it turns into other things. There are co-infections. It's not just the Lyme bacteria. This is the thing that's very confusing about Lyme disease. Lyme disease has been named after one bacteria, but once it goes chronic, there are multiple bacteria that are involved. They run interference for each other. They create something called biofilms, which is a mucousy shield that makes them antibiotic resistant. They go and they leave the bloodstream. They go into muscle, bone, tissue, joints. It becomes a devastating illness that mimics 300 different illnesses. Everything from Parkinson's to MS to ALS even. And so that's the confusing thing. If you go to
that's part of what's so hard to get then the accurate diagnosis and treatment.
Right. So once you're chronic, you'll go to an infectious disease doctor or a rheumatologist, and the rheumatologist will just treat you for your symptoms of joint pain and maybe fatigue. The infectious disease doctor more than likely will not. They're trained to not believe in chronic Lyme disease. They will say, okay, you've taken a round of antibiotics. So you are cured of Lyme disease. You have this condition called post-treatment Lyme syndrome, which I don't, that make basically it's a label put on Lyme patients that they're crazy, that they're, why are you still complaining about symptoms when we treated you with a month of antibiotics? So,
And when did you have the original spider bite? That
it,
seems very pertinent to this wonderful discussion.
it was right after 9/11. It was 3 weeks after 9/11.
What year was that? That was 20?
2001.
Okay. I was gonna say that was 23 years ago. I had to go by my daughter's age there and calculate for a minute.
But I didn't get diagnosed until 2005. And I didn't really have
For 4 years, you're saying 2001 to 2005.
yeah, but the
Oh, goodness.
symptoms didn't really erupt until stresses started happening in my life. The birth of my daughter, selling a house, buying a house, having trouble at work. All these are outlined in my book. I had these, somebody pointed out to me during this 1 month of my life. They're like, there's like 10 stressors in your life and you've got 7 of them in 1 month. The only thing you don't have is like a death of a loved one. You've got, buying a house, selling a house, trouble at work, birth, family, financial concerns, all these things. And as anyone who knows about disease and how stress affects anybody, it brings your immune system down. So that's what opened the doorway for these co-infections that I think my body was fighting off for several years.
I see.
They erupted. So let's get into that. So I went 2 years undiagnosed, but as I mentioned to Wendy, it was in September of 2001 that I got bitten, but my symptoms didn't start until the next year. So around 2002 or so, 2003, they erupted. I went to doctors. They didn't know what to do. And unfortunately, many of the doctors said, and because I wasn't, crawling into the office and, looking jaundiced or bleeding out, they looked at me and said, oh, your symptoms aren't life-threatening, so maybe you learn to live with them. And I never had these symptoms in my life and they weren't getting better. They weren't going away. This did not feel like.
Knew it wasn't right.
No, it wasn't right to ignore them. But these are MDs are telling me this, 2 of them, 2 MDs, and this is a common thing. And then another one of the MDs asked me if I was depressed. So, in his flow chart of, does he have cancer, diabetes, heart disease? No, he doesn't have those things. Has these persistent symptoms. Maybe he's depressed. So that was the catch-all. And I said, I'm not. Yes, these symptoms are making me depressed, but I'm not depressed first. That's not making me sick, my depression. It's the other way around. And he still, recommended I see a psychiatrist, which I didn't do. And then I pointed out to him that, you know what, you're not medically curious about what's going on with me. And I'm paying for a service with you. And I'm not happy with my service. So I won't be coming back. So, anyway, I was lucky enough to get diagnosed. And this is the thing with Lyme patients. I got diagnosed by somebody who then didn't know how to treat me well. I mean, didn't use the right treatment for me. So this woman was fantastic. She was a naturopath. She asked me to compile a list of my symptoms over the course of a week. I brought them in. She looked at them and she said, and this is how most doctors who understand about Lyme disease, you can give a diagnosis. It's a patient history that tells you more about what's going on with the patient than a blood test, which is extremely inaccurate. And there are 36 strains of Lyme disease, just the one bacteria. And the major tests by Quest, called the Western blot test by Quest and LabCorp, only test for 3, I believe. So it's common for false negatives. That said, so she asked me if I'd been tested. I said yes, and then we did the IGeneX test, and it came back positive. So she said, "All right, let's get you on antibiotics." So put me on a month of doxycycline. And it's now scientific studies are showing now if you've had Lyme disease more than a few years, going on doxycycline does not get rid of it. In fact, the longer you stay on it, it degrades your health. So after a month, I didn't like how I felt. Here's another confusing thing. She said, "Oh, you're having what's called a Herxheimer reaction. This is a die-off reaction," she said. "You're killing the bacteria that's bothering you. The antibiotics are breaking up in the bodies of these bacteria, and the toxins are going in your system. And it's a good sign. You're making progress, but just tough it out." Well, that's horrible advice. So, because a major die-off reaction can affect your organs, that many toxins hitting you. Also, it just never stopped. So I think I was beginning to get some effects, some bad side effects from the actual antibiotics themselves. So I didn't know anything about the disease at this time. This is in 2005. And I thought, if this is a bacterial infection, what's the best way to disinfect my body? Wouldn't it be through intravenous antibiotics? And I heard about these things called PICC lines. So and I didn't know, stupid me, I didn't do enough research about what a PICC line actually was. It probably would have given me pause, but I guess I was meant to go through all this so I could tell you my story, because to I went to a hospital in my state, and and nobody explained exactly what was going to happen. I just thought they were going to run a line in my arm, not knowing that the line went all the way up to my heart, and that I had to be on an operating table to get it. And what happened was, as they ran the line, they jabbed my heart, and my blood pressure went down while I was on the table. And I complained, that I said, "I'm lying down. Why do I feel like I'm about to pass out?" And I heard them, I've seen enough shows in the ER where, things are going off and people are getting nervous. Like, wait a minute, his blood pressure's dropping. What's going on? I'm like, what's happening? Well, they hit my heart. They jab what's called my sinusoidal node. It's a patch of nerves inside your heart that is your heart's natural pacemaker. So they jabbed that, damaged it. They put me on a gurney in the hallway, fed me lunch. And when I kind of snapped out of it, they said, "Okay." And I drove home.
You drove yourself home.
Yes. And I
Wow.
went home that night, and I thought, all right, I guess I'm okay. That was a little weird. Maybe this happens to other patients. I don't know. Nobody gave me any information. Um, I was shown how to administer the antibiotics, and they gave me some antibiotics, these little balls that I needed to keep in a fridge. And then the end of the line had a nozzle that you would screw the ball onto, and then that's how I would administer my antibiotics every day. Anyway, so they showed me that, but it didn't say anything about what I went through. So I went to bed that night, and I tend to sleep on my side. So I was sound asleep, and I rolled over on my side, and the line went deeper into my heart, which caused more or less like a type of a heart attack. So I didn't tell my wife. I just went downstairs. I had a big presentation to give the next day. I didn't call anyone at work. It's not like me to do this, because I really seriously thought my life was going to end at that moment. I laid down on the couch and in our den and just waited for the sun to rise. And I realized, okay, it looks like I'm not going to die. I'm going to call the emergency line to the hospital, tell them what I went through. And the guy who answered was a very nice doctor, and he said, "Listen, I feel for you what you went through, but you went through the toughest part of it, but you didn't even give yourself any antibiotics." He goes, "This may sound a little crazy, but can you tough this out? Can you just try the antibiotics? Don't sleep on your side anymore.
Well, that seems like that should have been discussed before you were discharged. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah." So I did, and I had massive Herxheimer reactions, and it got worse and worse and worse until I got a C. diff infection. I got all of these major side effects. That can be life threatening right there. Throwing up and having diarrhea to the point where you can't eat or drink. You die of dehydration. Luckily they gave me more antibiotics to fight that. But there was one particular night where my wife and I had a really bad argument, and at the end of the argument, I was really depressed. And I went into another one of our bedrooms and laid face down. And I started having that heart attack feeling again. And this time, this is my near death experience without, my consciousness leaving my body. But I was basically praying, like, yes, please take me now. My heart was going crazy. I was going with it. I was like, let's do this. I've had a great life up to this point. I can't imagine living beyond this moment because of how I feel now. So I let everything go. All of my expectations, I was ready to leave the earth. And I think something energetically happened to me. I didn't have this spectacular, I've seen plenty of near death experience testimonies. And Wendy, I've heard yours and seen, yours is spectacular and amazing. I didn't have that moment where I left my body because I didn't physically die. But mentally I did and emotionally I did. I let go of everything. I really was prepared to leave. I wanted to. I was ready. So it was a strange feeling after about an hour where I didn't die and I was still there. And it was kind of like, now what? Now what happens? So I wasn't as depressed as I had been, but I just kind of the next day went through my life a little bit like a zombie, but within about
Sounds like going through the motions from there.
yeah, in about 3 days, a number of spectacular coincidences started happening in my life where I met two different healers who within days were changing my physical. One was over the phone, a guy who I'd heard on a radio show. It was just not like me. I'd heard on an actual terrestrial radio show, this guy doing clearing and cleansings of people on the callers to the radio show. I booked an appointment with him, very expensive, and we did a session. And he pulled all of these things off of me, broke a curse, all these things that I wasn't, thinking about. But as he was talking about it and telling me what he was doing, my depression lifted, my vision changed. I mean, it was a powerful healing. And towards the end of it, he was talking to my guides. And so he was on the phone talking to me and then my guides. And then he was getting information and then he was talking to them out loud. And I've mentioned this before in some of our other podcasts, but at one point he said, he's more special than you know. And I said, who are you talking about? And he said, your guides are talking to me, saying that about you. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, you're going to be doing what I'm doing. You're going to write a book. You're going to help people. You're going to fight the good fight. You're going to be a healer. And that was interesting information, I guess, to hear at that point. But, I just almost died the week before. And I was more interested in my physical healing, which I was feeling at that moment. I was more interested in that, to be quite honest with you. So, I didn't forget what he said, and I thought it was interesting and mildly amusing, but, I didn't think, all right, well, now I'm going to write a book, no, that's not what happened.
It wasn't on your radar because
no,
you just can't process something like that.
No, it was a sharp right turn in my life, from where I was. And then within a week of that, I met another healer who helped me do the remote healing that I do today. She was major teacher in helping me do astral visualization, astral projection, and kind of getting my mind comfortable with the idea of anything's possible. anything is possible through, the energy of the creator and love, all these things that, were concepts I'd heard of. Some of them sounded like new age woo-woo stuff, but I would see them in action, through sessions she and I did together. And anyway, that is, so I started having this spiritual awakening, but my body wasn't quite catching up. So I had great impact from this guy's session, and but something was missing. So again, another coincidence, within a few weeks, I found out about this healer in Brazil named John of God. Now, some of you may have heard of him and know that he is now in jail. And yes, I know about it too, obviously, but that was not, I had a real healing experience down there. And I also acknowledged that he has molested women and belongs in jail. But so this is a complicated situation. It's not black and white. As with most things in life, there are no absolutes. So yes, it is possible for somebody like John of God to be able to, he wasn't doing the actual healing himself. He brought about a healing environment that was spectacular. And I'll talk about it in a minute, but he also molested women. So it's very confusing. It's not a cut and dried situation. If you're curious about more deep thoughts that I have about this, go to my website, greggkirk.com, and click on my thoughts of John of God, and you'll find out more about that. But anyway, I went down to Brazil looking for, because my physical healing had stopped. I was still doing a lot of antibiotics, and it wasn't helping me. Went down to Brazil, and I had no expectations, because I really didn't know what I was doing there, other than I had talked to a psychic who said you should go. She didn't recommend it. I asked her about John of God because I heard about him elsewhere, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm seeing you need to go there immediately." And I've talked about this before too. I was not in a good way mentally. I didn't know how I was going to get down there. I needed to get a visa. It was going to cost thousands of dollars. 10-hour plane flight. I was going to have to leave my family for 2 weeks. This just did not seem possible. So I talked to one of the women who ran tours to go down there, who I went with, and she said, "Listen, Gregg, the first miracle is you coming down here. So just don't think about the details about how it's going to happen. If it's meant to be, the doors will fly open, and you'll be there. But just let it, just see how that feels." I liked that thinking. I hadn't heard anybody speak that way before. I speak that way every day now. So, but it was true. I took my mental blocks out of the way, my beliefs on how to get down there. And I went down there, and proof of what happened to me down there is on the left of this slide. March 8th, I got down there. I was very inflamed. My face looked asymmetrical. I was really in a bad way, kind of at death's door again. And then 12 days later, below, massive reduction of inflammation. The day that I had my spiritual and physical breakthrough, it looked like I had age regressed 10 years. Just spectacular stuff. Again, all that in Wendy and I have talked about it a few times on the podcast, but it was a spectacular thing. But the reason I bring it up again is because I came home, and the people down there have said, "All right, listen, this is your job, your only job when you go home, because you're going back from this place that's supernatural. The energy here is not like anywhere else, and it's easy for people to be healed here because the energy is so high. And some people live there because of it. And then they literally walk across the street out of the zone of energy and they get ill. It's that distinct down there." Mm. But to me, and I didn't realize this then, the point is to have that experience so you realize it's possible. And then to realize that energy that's causing that situation down there is available anywhere if you open yourself up to it. I didn't realize it. I thought I had to go down there and that was the only place I could get it. So I came back 6 months later, went right back into my job that I'd had. It's very stressful, tough time, at home. all kinds of stressors, not eating well. I was drinking soda and eating pizza. It's just, I didn't know any better. And within 6 months, I started, some symptoms started coming back. So that was very upsetting to me. So I flew all the way back down there again, thinking I had to chase that and go down and get recharged. And I did it a total of 6 times, but the next 3 times total, I realized I didn't have to go down there for the physical healing. I released that. I realized that the next 3 times I went down there was for spiritual evolution. So it changed my life in so many positive ways. It enhanced the healing abilities I have. For one thing, it completely erased my belief systems of how life is, how life can be, what we're here to do, the important things in life, all that kind of stuff. And but it also left me searching for a meaning of what I went through. So here's how I'd just like to break this down. This is for, I created this slide for Lyme patients, so you understand more or less what's happening with you and your healing and your treatment. Because here's what happened to me. I went on antibiotics, and I didn't feel better. I didn't get better. And then I got depressed, and I was angry, and I was acting and feeling like a victim. I was like, what did I do to deserve this? I was mad at everybody. I was pissed off at the medical system, at the insurance system for not covering most of my treatments, for all these things going on in my life. And, that didn't make me better. What made me better was getting a better attitude about it. So coming down to this point here of mind, body, spirit connection. And I know some of you may be watching this and saying, oh, this old trope, I've heard this before. I have too. Mind, body, spirit. Oh, of course, it's what all the new age people talk about. But let me just break it down in practical terms. It's important for you, let's look at your body. It's important for you to take physical treatments, because they're going to physically either eliminate the bacteria, the microbes, or the parasites that are bothering you. And it's good to take physical things to help reduce inflammation. It's good to take vitamins to support your system. These are real things. You can't just take any one of these pillars in this, any one of these circles, and just do them. So I was just doing the body thing for the longest time, just taking antibiotics and just focusing on my body. I did not pay attention to my mindset. Spirituality was not even in my radar. So if you are taking physical treatments, just know that you can add these things: positive feeling about your treatment. In other words, just thinking like, this treatment is doing right by me. This treatment is going to get me better. That gets into this belief system thing of placebo effect or nocebo effect. We've heard of the placebo effect, which is somebody gives you a sugar pill and it cures your headache because you believe it will. That is a real thing. That's a mindset thing. So look how important that is. What if you put that mindset on the stuff that is already working for you? You're empowering it now. You're creating intentional medicine is what I call it, or mindful healing. And, just as I've seen patients who do the opposite, nocebo effects, I give them a treatment that's worked on hundreds of patients and they don't believe it will work, and they say it won't work, and it doesn't work. So adding positive energy to your medicine. This is what I do every time. Every time I take any supplement, I hold it in my hand and I just say, bless this to my higher and greater good 3 times. And I imagine light in my hand as I'm holding the supplements. And I'm just telling you, that is a real thing. That does something. And I just recommend doing it. Try it. Have fun with it.
And certainly we can be doing that with our food and our water.
Yes.
Just anything we're going to ingest. It's such a big deal to bless it and to just see it working for our highest and holiest.
Anything that goes into my body now. So in one hand will be my supplements, and the other hand is the water that I'm going to be drinking. And I hold them up, I close my eyes, I say, bless this to my higher and greater good. And I see light in both hands. So that's suggestion about about body, mind, suspend your expectations and place focus on pursuits that uplift you. So don't spend a lot of time keeping score on where you are with your physical treatment. Is it working today? Is it working yet? Is it working yet? Is it working yet? Don't do that. Don't go back into testing to see how sick you are or not. Just let it be. Just keep, it's none of your business. Once you start taking the treatment, bless it and let it be. Your guides, the universe, your energy is it's doing the best that it can for you. Just let it do that. Don't get in the way of it. Reduce also, just in your regular life, reduce the amount of stress that you've got. The people, places, and things that are toxic in your life. Try to stay away from them as much as you can, and just make sure you're not blocking your success. I just had a consult with a woman today who was did a lot of research on things that could be bothering her, and sometimes those things can come into your existence if you invite them in. So just find a treatment that as you start to take it, you have physical improvements on, and then bless it and let it be, and then feel good about it. And if you ever, so it's very common for Lyme patients to get depressed because their symptoms raise what's called cytokines. These are proteins that cause inflammation in your body. It squeezes your brain, makes you feel hopeless and depressed. How awful, right? So one bit of medicine that I used was listening to good music or comedy shows. So anytime I felt really low, find your favorite comedy show, have it ready, queued up on YouTube, bookmarked, and just watch your favorite comedian and just get out of that mindset. Esther Hicks talks about it all the time. The single most important thing you can be doing in your life at all times is to raise your vibration. And the easiest ways to do that is to be around loving people, to listen to great music, to watch funny shows. Just, it's that simple. Keep your vibe high, and everything else will work better. Your treatment will work better. And then the final thing is a spiritual thing. And for those of you who are maybe in the tail end of your treatment, the best thing you could do is to really look to the lesson of what this is all about. Be open to the idea that, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. So there's much more to you than your body, and miracles and impossibilities are always possible. What is this? Why is this happening to you? So that's what led me to the slide. I wanted to say, after I went through all this, I thought, why did I go through this? And then it just really dawned on me during one of my sessions when I was down in Brazil that I was given a gift of experience. I walked through the flames, I walked through the fire, walked through the valley of death, whatever you want to call it, and came out and lived so that I could tell my story to other people, to let other people know that you don't have to die from this illness, that I'm healthier than I've ever been physically. I'm in better shape than I've ever been mentally, physically, and spiritually. And this can be a boon in your life. This can be your pivot point in your life where you can go upwards. They say that something like this will either make you bitter or better. Well, and the choice is yours. Mm-hmm. The choice is yours. Now, some people, I've heard people in the Lyme community say, "Oh, so you're saying this is my fault? If I don't." Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's a victim mentality, right? So that is on the scale of human consciousness. That's down here. It's just above shame.
It's not about fault.
No, this isn't nobody's fault. This is an experience you're going through, and it's like a lesson in life. So, yes, it's not unusual for you to be angry and to feel bad and to want to die as you're going through this treatment. But look to other lessons that it's all about letting go, to be honest with you. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide about detachment.
And what an opportunity to purge those really difficult, really low vibration emotions. And we don't have another way to do it so handily as when we're just at our lowest. We have to be knocked to our knees. It's not, if everything's going great in my life, I'm not like, how can I work on deep shame today? know,
Exactly.
it just, or how can I work on heartbreak today? It just, that just sounds ridiculous.
Yes.
So
And
it's just looking for that silver lining while being really empathetic with yourself, that this is truly horrible. This sucks. This may be the most grueling, heartbreaking, terrible thing you've ever been through. So, how do you work through that? When someone said to me, choosing whether something is happening for us and asking, why is this happening for me versus to me,
mhm,
really helped me get out of that victim place.
yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, I, I call these, well, Esther Hicks calls them contrast. So, what does contrast mean? It's contrast to your expectations. So, you expect to be happy, healthy, and live a beautiful, amazing, happy life and never have anything bad happen to you. That's your expectation. We all have it, right? Well, of course, that's not going to happen. And we also have a lot of expectations about things not changing. Some people are, the animals that are most resistant to change that I've ever seen are cats. I see a lot of people like cats. Cats don't like change too much. Most cats don't. And a lot of people that way, so when they're forced into change, these are big moments in their life where they respond with anger or grief or fight or flight, victimhood, all these things. These are your opportunities to let go. So victimhood, number one, why me? Blame pointing, life, God, or the universe is against you. Bad luck. This is the way it is, and it will never change. That will keep you in that mentality will keep you in sickness. Whether and not, I'm not saying that's your fault. What I'm saying is somebody who was there, I was there. I was pissed off at the world. Of course I was. I was yelling, screaming at everybody. There just got to be a point where I just thought, this isn't working anymore. this anger is not getting me better. So that's the second part. Moving from victimhood to anger is an improvement, but it's still not a great state to be in. It's a step up, but it's the emotions are, you know, the emotions experienced directly after having a disastrous or bad experience. How long do they last? How long do you hold onto them, and do they define you? So I know there's a lot of people who are angry, and that defines them. A lot of fight, warrior mentality, all that stuff, and that's great to get you out of the victimhood. But again, if you're fighting with people all the time, you're leaking energy all over the place. It's better for you to be in a place, because you're fighting an illness. You need all the energy you can get. So that's where going into the third stage of acceptance and learning. Once you accept where you are, like, all right, I've tried these other things. I'm out of victimhood. I moved through anger. What's left for me now? What's the fight or flight and all that. My fighting grief didn't change anything. So what's going on? Why is this happening? So investigate that. And that's what Wendy and I were talking about. Look into what the lesson is, and let go. The biggest thing I did was realize, it's a quote from my book that I kept saying out loud. My life was like burning to the ground. Everything I enjoyed in my life was burning to the ground. I couldn't eat the foods I wanted. I used to like to drink alcohol, this, that, and the other thing I couldn't do. So it was changing my personality. And this happens to a lot of Lyme patients. You lose who you used to be, but can you accept the fact that maybe you're becoming a better person? You're shedding your skin. The forest fire is good. It burns away the dead wood in a forest. It actually enhances its growth. And so once you can accept and let all that stuff be, let it burn the rest of your life to the ground and see what's left over for you. You're free at that point. And then once you realize that, you have this gratitude of, you know what, that was an awful experience. I would never wish that on anyone, but I got through it and now I'm in a better place. energy shifts start happening, and gratitude amplifies whatever you're doing. So fantastic stuff. So one final thing, Wendy, about all this, what I learned from all this, and also information I got from the guides through some of the healing circles I've been running, is that there's three main lessons in these experiences. And we've talked about this before, but I just want to bring them up again. There's three main lessons my guide said that you learn in life. It's patience, forgiveness, and detachment. When they gave those to me, I thought, certainly there's more than that, and I've tried to find a loophole and I haven't been able to.
Feels like everything rolls up into those. It
They
feels like
do. From
just
what I've seen. So if any listener out there finds a loophole, please let me know. But boils down to this: patience. Your daily schedule is not life or death. Being busy is not an accomplishment. Busyness is not an excuse to treat others badly. And sometimes you need to understand that patience is a virtue, of course. It's slow moving energy. It is peaceful energy. It is a form of grace. And we are here to experience and learn about grace in this lifetime. So, frantic mentality, rushing here and there, it's how you lose energy. Somebody who is, look at all the Zen Buddhist yogis walking around. They're just having a good time. they're not in a rush to go anywhere, and that's a huge lesson. Forgiveness. Wendy and I have talked about this before, but according to the law of one, karma is a form of stuck or inert energy that has a negative effect on a person's energy. So forgiveness is the key to unlocking that inertia. That's a huge bit of information that they wrote about in that book. So karma block. Karma is one of the things that can affect your spiritual or energetic your energy, and that can cause physical problems. So forgiving holding that burden of, if somebody did you wrong, somebody abused you, even sexual abuse, these are things that are tough things to forgive. But if you can do that, it is the most liberating, freeing, healing thing that can occur.
Well, it's a gift to you because you can't find peace and happiness until you forgive someone else. And it doesn't mean you're forgiving those actions that can be considered unforgivable, but being able to forgive that person at the soul level, or however you can find it, it frees you.
One way that helps me with this kind of thing is when somebody's done something really awful to me and I'm angry about it. I go all the way back. I think of them as a child, I think of them as a young child, like 4 or 5 years old. And I think about what happened to them to make them the type of person that would have done this awful thing to me. So, and if you can find a bit of sympathy or empathy in that helps me, forgive someone. And then finally, detachment. Wendy and I have talked about loving detachment. So I got a quote that came loud and clear. One day I was minding my own business. My guide said, everything you care about in your life is causing you pain. I thought, well, what? That is a bold statement. Everything you care about in your life is causing you pain. So think about that.
The attachment and the fear of losing it.
Yeah. Or just the concern, right? So think about it. Anything you care about. What do you care about? You care about your loved ones. You care about where you live, your home, your car, whatever. We know about possessions. Getting attached to possessions is a bankrupt idea. Bankrupt energetically, because they'll break down, they'll burn up, they'll get knocked over by a hurricane, whatever. So being attached to them is a money losing proposition. And as with people, now it doesn't mean not to love them, but people are going to die. They're going to upset you. They're going to move in and out of your life. And if you hold on to an attachment to them that sucks the energy out of you, that's not healthy for you. So being able to be detached, but still love these people, and just, it's not, this is what I've learned about with kids. It's not your business to get in their business. We come from generations past where the parents dictated everything that a kid should do and got involved in their lives and just basically bossed them around.
The
um,
authoritarian parenting style.
right, and that that it creates these massive cordial attachments to parent and child, and it's just both of them lose energy in that situation. So just with that, or with anything else, in any friends in your life, it's not your business to go to give them advice or to try to browbeat them into doing certain things. Just let them go, let them be. All you can do is say words of encouragement and advice if they ask for it, and let them be. Cut the cord, let them go, love them from afar, and your energy will, you be surprised how much energy you retain now in your daily life, and you're going to be so much
Retain and regain.
right. You're going to be so much healthier physically, spiritually, energetically. Your mind will be clear. You're not concerned. Wendy and I did entire episode about, um, life not happening to you, happening for you, realizing that these bumps in the road, I'm experiencing some bumps in the road right now. And I'm actually excited because I know these bumps are, they've upset me, but I know I'm letting go of them. There's great,
Break down to break through.
yes, there's great things coming, right, already starting to come my way. I'm here, I'm ready to catch them. Just, I'm not going to get in the way. I'm like, all right, come on. I'm letting go of my it's when these things start, you get stressed out just because we're human beings and we're supposed to feel emotion initially. But it's that old saying, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So how much do I hang on to stress and continue suffering? Well, I'm doing my best to experience very little, but it still comes, and it's not. You don't forget it, when you experience it, like, stress. I hate this, but you know, let it go. I know something great. How I get through it better is knowing that something really great is coming on the other end of this, and some things are already starting to. So, like I said to Wendy prior to us starting the broadcast, I'm sure we're going to have it's fodder for more content in the future for a future episode. So um anyway, so that's my Lyme story. It's long-winded, a lot going on. It's basically is I want to give all those details all the way through, details on treatment, how to avoid Lyme disease. But once you do go into the heart of Lyme disease, the heart of darkness of Lyme disease, you can walk out in the light, a changed person for the better. It's not just me who's walked through it. There's other people I know, and it's I'm left speechless. Actually, it's just it was life changing.
Metamorphosis from what you're describing, Greg. So thank you for just describing that in detail, because it really, it's inspirational, and definitely people have been there. I mean, I can see some analogies to other things that people have worked their way through too. Do you feel that night when you were just ready to go home and went and plunked down in that guest bedroom and said, okay, I'm ready to go? Do you feel like that was that? Would you call that a dark night? Have you heard that term? Do you like that term?
Yeah, I think so. It was a pivotal
That
point.
feels like, to me, it
Yeah,
feels like, to me, a dark night of the soul. It's quite literal. It's like we're just done. We have like nothing left. We feel like we have nothing left to give or to live for, and there's no purpose in being here. And I feel like it's an ego rebalancing. I don't want to call it an ego death, because I don't believe the ego can die. I believe the ego has to be a part of our human psyche, my
right.
personal belief. But many people do call it an ego death, because life is never the same if you work your way through that dark night of the soul. Because you made a choice. You like you said, you were a bit bewildered by it, because I had my first dark night of the soul when I woke up the next morning. I was extremely surprised to find I still had a body and was still in my bedroom and was on the planet.
Yeah.
Because it is bewildering because it is such an incredible change, because
Right.
you really are looking at going home. You really think you're going home.
Yeah.
The ego has a very important job, but it's very straightforward. The ego sees its job as keep him or her alive,
Right. Right.
and therefore does not like change,
Right.
as
And
you
so,
brought it up too.
so I think there was an ego, not death, but maybe a detachment or flipping off of the switch when I basically was saying, I'm ready to go.
Right,
The ego is like, well, I don't have any more work to do here. I can't
right.
keep this guy around.
It's
Yeah.
like being scrubbed clean. It's like being, scrubbed all the way to your essential core. And the walking through the fire, I mean, that's another great way to put it. And you touched multiple times on spiritual surrender. And I think that's so important. That was such an unnatural skill for me. I did not get it at all.
Yeah.
We've talked about that multiple times too. But when we just are willing to go, okay, I've been doing this and going this direction and trying this, and I thought this is what I was meant to do, and I've put all this time and effort and money and whatever into it, all this investment in it, and it just comes to a crashing halt. I think learning how to just spiritually surrender and go, I'm letting it go. I'm just letting it go. It's not working. It's not for me. How can I find some ease and grace with spiritually surrendering this and letting it go? And that does just then over time, and we can't say what time period that's going to be. It can be quick or it can be longer than we want it to be, of that ease and grace to come back in of what the new path is and what the new occurrences and new happenings are going to be.
Yeah.
But is that making sense of, because
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of spiritual surrender in there. And he's more special than you know, that quote that came from the healer in reference to you back in 2011. I think we all just have these beautiful special abilities that we can just be squashing down and not wanting to look at or work with because we don't feel comfortable with them. We don't feel capable of what we're being asked to do or what this new path is. And I think it's just time to get a heck of a lot more adventurous. One of my friends was using the analogy, if you ever when you were a kid had these books that were like the adventure series and it had like different endings to the stories.
Hmm.
I think we're really meant to be, just trying on these different experiences and adventures with the best sense of humor that we can. Like you said, just, where's the good music? Where's the ridiculous comedies, the silly comedies, because everybody's got a different sense of humor.
Right.
Um, so maybe it is time to watch the latest remake of Beverly Hills Cop because they just remade it for third year
Right. Yeah.
anniversary. But I think just being willing to embrace with humility that we all truly are. We're all unique. We're just all special, and be willing to just take that on and go, "Wow, thank you." It's like being able to accept a compliment, whereas so many people just deflect them. They
Yeah.
don't know what to do with it. It makes them uncomfortable. It brings up self-confidence issues. They just need, healing for the solar plexus, their heart, wherever they might need it. But just yeah, I was told by an astrologer about 10 years before it started to really come into fruition. And she said, "Oh, you're meant to be a spiritual counselor and a spiritual teacher." And I was like, excuse me, are you looking at my natal
Right.
chart?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're good at this?
Right.
And yeah, tell me where you're getting, because I don't know what you're talking about. And
Yep.
I was so literal with it. I thought it meant that I was going to have to go back to school and like retrain. And
Mm,
yes, I did retrain, but it was not about, going back to, traditional schooling and go get like a degree in psychology or psychiatry. I thought that's what she was talking about. And I
right.
was just slamming the brakes on. I was like, oh, come on. I've already got a master's degree. It just annoyed me to be told that because I was not ready for it. So when it did start to happen and I just, clapped my hand to my forehead, I did email her and I apologized. I told her that I just, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you closed the loop." She said, "It didn't bother me at all. I've gotten over that. I just knew you weren't ready for it. And my job was to just deliver the message, and that's what I did." But it's so cool that, you wrote back to me years later.
Hmm. Very
So,
cool.
and then you also mentioned several times, coincidences that were coming up with going to Brazil, and that was like starting to fall into place. I think it's much stronger than coincidence. I think it was just beautiful synchronicities.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. No doubt. No doubt. All those things lined right up.
the energy
Yeah.
was building. I had the same or similar experience with you, Greg, of just like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks away from the family. This is so far. It's going to cost thousands, and I don't even know I can drag myself on the plane. I was super resistant, my guides, and this is such a lesson for people. Just know when you've got the intuition and you're hearing it, whether it's, from God, from Mother Earth, from angels, your guides, people around you, however it's coming up to you. I was told literally for 5 years, very specifically, you need to go to Glastonbury to heal.
Mm.
And I just was so resistant to it. I kind of like you with Brazil, but you did a much better job of getting your sorry self on the plane. And I just was like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost so much. And I don't know, I can get that much time off work. So I just kept piling excuses on top of it. I wish what I had done instead, which I have done with other things in life, was just say, wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds incredible. Show me the way. Make that happen. Open those doors. That's what I wish I had done, because it did take me 5 years to drag myself off to Glastonbury, England. So finally, the guides got through to me and showed me this incredible writers conference. And I so wanted to go to that, and it was so inexpensive. And I was like, okay, I get it. You're getting me over there, and I'm going to combine the two. I'm going to go to Glastonbury as well as to the writers conference in in Edinburgh. So that my poor guides, all our poor guides, they're like trying again and again and again. Oh, they
Right.
got for it this way. I got to try another way.
Right. Right. Amazing.
They're so patient with us. Um, and I could just hear, go with the flow the whole time when you were talking about Brazil, because when it is the right path and when we just stop objecting and just letting our ego and our fear run the show, and just are willing to go with the flow and say, hey, if this is what's meant to happen, just show me the way. It just, then the magic comes in. And that pizza and soda, I've heard the acronym of the American diet is the sad diet.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Because it's my goodness, how did we grow up with this, allergy to fresh, wonderful food and amazing vegetables and whole foods and plant-based? How did we, because that's what we used to eat, because that's what we, and and the grains, and that's what was available. But then it just all got, so made into the over processed, over packaged, and we got on the rat race. And so you're out and about and you're hungry. Well, it's not like there's like these wonderful salad bars or fresh fruit bars where you can like drive through. There needs to be, and I'm willing to pay it. So when we're just dashing about and need something good and healthy to eat, can you please have a drive-through window for that?
Right.
So yeah, and then you spoke so meaningfully about just the anger and that victim, piece being stuck in that. Because I do think we do have to feel anger or whatever the true emotion is to be able to release it. But there's absolutely ways that we can release that in safe, appropriate, uplifting ways, and can learn how to do that. You've heard people talk about, well, punch the pillow, write it on a little sheet of paper and just go outside. This is one of my favorites, and just really feel it, but just feel it for 15 seconds and ask your guides, ask whoever you want to help you to just really feel, and then burn it up. I mean, it's just such a powerful release, and you can do this in less than 5 minutes, and no one is harmed because you're not like leaking that anger out on everyone around you and exhausted because you're on this, roller coaster of not knowing how to, safely express the anger, or the sadness, or whatever it is, the frustration, the jealousy, whatever it is, those not so comfortable emotions. Because I think a lot of us, we're not taught how to do that as children because our parents are doing the best they can. We know that if we're parents now, we also know we've had not so fine parenting moments, and teaching. I went to the John Gottman Institute, which is a really well-known, amazing relationship coaches, in the Seattle area. And they did this talk, when I had preschoolers, and I never forgot it because my children are now 26 and 28, and they were like 2 and 4 at the time. And what they said was, if you can teach your toddler when they're just having the big feelings and the meltdown and the tantrums, and they're just all over the place because they don't know what they're feeling, if you can teach them and ask them, are you feeling mad, are you feeling sad, are you feeling glad, as just like a starting point,
Mhm.
they're like, and now parents, can you feel that? Do you know?
Right. Yeah.
Apply this to yourself too, because it's
Right.
not just for your preschoolers,
Mhm.
but it's a great starting point.
Right.
Um, and then you talked, about, just needing all the pillars. And that is so true because, picture a stool. If you've got a stool and it's just got one leg, and you're working on, improving the body and the health, and you're not working on the mind, you're not working on the spirit. Well, how do you think that stool's going to stand? Of course it can't stand. It's only got one leg on it. And same thing, even if you've got two legs in place, it's still not going to be sturdy. You can't sit on the stool with just the two legs very well. Um, Possibly for a few minutes, but it's going to be pretty wobbly if you move it all. It needs the three legs or more to really be sturdy. And I think so many people struggle. I absolutely still have, and okay, let me rephrase. I won't even call it a struggle. I'm still having the journey of um getting the health, the wealth, and the harmonious relationships, because that's another, really important, three-legged stool.
Mhm.
And yay, got two of them going really well. Oh wow, still working on that third one. And then I might be really focusing and trying to improve that one that's been weak. And then I'm like, oh gosh, I need to put some more energy and deposits back into the other two because now I can feel they're not as sturdy. Because that certainly is, we as humans, that's often, the big three buckets, that we need to be working on is the health, the wealth and career, and those harmonious, wonderful relationships, because life's not very happy if you have just excelled in one of those areas or even two of those areas, because you need it all. We need the balance. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And then we talked about the what's happening, why is this happening for me, versus to me. And we're in the thick of it, of something really, really tough or challenging going on. I believe that the sooner we can ask that question, the sooner we're going to be able to shift it and surrender and start to just let go and to move through it more graciously, more gracefully, and typically more quickly. Versus just still, just fighting. I can't believe I got laid off from that job. I'm going to put in 23 strategies to get that job back. I've actually done that. Oh my goodness. Wendy, get over it. That was just clearly a door that had closed and I needed to move on from that. But I was just looking back too much. Instead of looking forward and, what are the new opportunities and just, more on that because I didn't want that door to close. But just to have been able to have processed that and just, find the ways to go with the flow and move on. And I did hear such beautiful things that we touched on about balancing the ego. And that sometimes, yes, it does feel like our life is just burning to the ground, and we go through a lot of challenging things all at once. Because often, when there is a health crisis, guess what? That leads to a financial crisis. Those two can be very linked and can also be taking a real toll on our relationships. So
Absolutely.
just they're so intertwined. But then we really get our finances going wonderfully, and we can just be investing in just the great things to keep that going, and enjoying our relationships too. But I almost always find, no matter what question the client has, when I'm working with people, it's, let's just start with the body. We're just absolutely going to start there. And it's interesting, Gregg, that you did not even think of this as a topic because it's so big, and it's been so defining that it's like we're too close to it. So it takes someone else to say, wow, there's some beautiful insights and just incredible um, change that you went through, that, as I said, it truly is inspirational, because you had to really change and really dig deep and do that multiple times, because, as you said, you had to make those multiple journeys back to John of God to really take that in and go, okay, wait a minute, this is not about this place anymore. This is about me. And this is, this healing energy is now within me. And how do I now change my life? Because I can't go back to that dang double loaded pizza with the quart of soda for dinner.
Right. Exactly.
It's just not going to work anymore. So if you go, right back into the same lifestyle and habits. And I say that so gently because yes, we can just be, not realizing how deep those habits are that don't serve us anymore, which is why I think that, like, a complete um burn, that perfect storm can come up where there's a job loss with a health crisis, with a divorce, or with a relationship, major relationship, or relationships ending, an unintended move, whatever it might be. It's just those big things can often come in the perfect storm, because otherwise we're not willing to change. And I think the changes that are meant for us and are available to us are glorious and amazing. And we just have to be willing to let go of the current reality to continue raising our vibration and frequency. And yes, that can be scary, because you can feel like a drowning man or a drowning woman. You can feel like you're just going under the waves. Um, with those changes, because when we didn't see them coming, or our human self wasn't looking for them. Like you said, cats don't like change. They can really be thrown off by that, and just not settle in so easily with that. But I think, what you were told of he's more special than you know, for everyone to please just take that as an example and talk with your guides, talk with God, whoever you believe in, and your own higher self, your own soul, and just say, what am I meant for, and what's next, and how can I be a little bit more open to it, a little bit more gracious with it.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said. And speaking of what's next, Wendy, tell us what's next with you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for just sharing this. So I am going to be hosting a Come As You Were past life regression party, and I've been away for a couple of days on a fun trip visiting friends, and I believe it's actually full at this point, but I will create another one. I'll come up with a new date. And what we're going to do in the past life regression party is we are going to release energy that no longer serves you. And we're going to do it as a group meditation together. You are so welcome if you do know a past life or past lives that you're really drawn to, or just a time period. You're so welcome. Have fun with this and come dressed, or bring something as symbolic of that for the Zoom call together. And then I will help you. I'm keeping these limited to a small number of people, is why I'm going to close this one out for that date and create a new date, so that I have time to just be able to help you understand who you were, if you've got any questions to clarify as we do that group meditation together. So that's a new program, and I'm so thrilled that people have been signing up for that in numbers. And same with the live channeling Q&A with the Ascended Masters and Angels. There are still seats for that on Saturday, September 28th. And I'm leaving this open to whichever Ascended Masters care to come through. I've done it once before, and it was specific to Yeshua, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene. But also they're just, that one then kicked off more Ascended Masters, Saint Germain in particular, Archangel Michael, or saying, hey, we want to be able to help and to speak also. So like, great, wonderful. So that's what that live channeling event will be. And you get to ask one question. So just really sit with it, and what question would be the most helpful to you to get assistance with. And that is what will happen during that on September 28th. And I offer on an ongoing basis complimentary energy clearing and blessings with Q&A. So there are 3 dates open for that, one in August, one in September, and one in October. It's a group Zoom call, and you sign up for it, you register for it ahead at no cost. And then I will just help you with that wonderful group energy healing and clearing that we will do together. And I would like to mention Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn, is now available as an audiobook, as well as on Kindle and paperback. And thank you to Greg, because it is thanks to him that is available as an audiobook. I know there's lots of authors listening, and you've not known how to create your book as an audiobook. You haven't had the tech skills to do that, or have not been able to figure out how to do that affordably. So I was able to do it by recording it at home using Zoom, because I have a radio station, a microphone, and I had the right type of room to be able to not be echoey. And then Greg had all the expertise and knowledge to be able to work with those files, to be able to clean them up, and was able to coach me on them. So just wanted to make you aware of that's a wonderful thing that you can be able to do with Greg's help. If you've already got your book written and are like, oh gosh, I wish I could make it into an audio book. And this book is really meaningful to me. It's very personal. It was a big decision and a big journey to be willing to share it publicly. I include many of my own sessions where I am the client, and the past life regressionist is helping me with my memories as one of those 2 famous individuals. And as I said, check it out on Kindle or paperback or on audiobook format. And please join us in September. We will get back to you and let you know what the date is going to be. We're going to have a date change for our September date. But you'll be able to see that announced in our Facebook group. Join us in our Facebook group, which is Waking Up Spiritually, and you'll get the latest news there. And join us on wakingupspiritually.com, and you can just click on the broadcast tab and find all the recordings there, or subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. And please rate and review us on Apple iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast is where you're finding us. We so appreciate that. That just helps some other people find us. And visit Gregg at his website, which is Gregg Kirk, KIRK.com. And you'll find the links to the gratitude curve. And now really think about that perfect title to his book when he talks about his Lyme journey with everything that he went through with that, and to come out on the other side and to have found the gratitude for that journey, because it's just the perfect title. And visit me at my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com, and you can go to the events tab there and just find out what's going on, and join me for an event. You'll also find how to work with me one-on-one on the homepage of the website. So thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, everyone. See you.